morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another episode of Fireside Chats with Dr. Mumba. This is our February Fireside Chat, and I'm excited to talk to Natasha Chuimya of Diaspora Connect. We are going to be talking about diversifying your investment portfolio through real estate investments and all things real estate. And I'm so excited that Natasha has made time for us to meet with her today and share her pearls of wisdom regarding investing in real estate. I'm so excited. Natasha and I got introduced, I think 3 years ago now, and through Diaspora Connect and all the wonderful work that she's doing there. And I'm so excited that she made time to be with us today. For our regular viewers, I know we're starting at 11:30, but that's because Natasha just finished another training through Diaspora Connect, and we're happy that she was able to be with us today. So Natasha, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on your platform, Mercy. It's a pleasure for me to be here.
So tell us, who is Natasha?
So, who is Natasha?
That is a loaded question.
Yes, it is. It is. And I'm wondering where to start. Okay, so I am a mother of two wonderful kids. And professionally, I am a lawyer, and with a focus, I've had a focus on real estate and property development for a number of years, a very long time. And this prompted me to start Diaspora Connect, which is a real estate company that focuses on helping Zambians like you in the diaspora buy property in a safe and reliable way. So I'm also a licensed realtor, and so is Diaspora Connect. I'm also a former lands tribunal adjudicator. So I listen to land disputes and we resolve land disputes from across the country. I am also a property developer. So I have built and sold 20 units, and I'm now working on my third project, which is going to be in student accommodation. So I like to say that I have a 360-degree perspective of the real estate market because I've been able to interact with it from a number of different perspectives.
So one of the things that has always fascinated me about you is you're a lawyer and you're in real estate. Tell us about your journey from law school to real estate and how that happened.
Yeah, so we were there. We had our practice with me and my partners, and it was going really well. So, like I mentioned when I was introducing myself, we had quite a number of clients that were doing large developments in and around Lusaka. So they were taking big pieces of land, former farmland, and subdividing it into smaller lots. And we were doing all of that legal work. And so their clients would come in to sign the paperwork when they were buying one of those plots. And some of those clients were from the diaspora. And they would tell us how difficult it was for them to buy property back home. And they were so thankful that they had this opportunity and everything was going so well. And I had no idea what a struggle it was for Zambians living abroad. Because for us, it was our bread and butter. It's something that we did every day. And so I realized that there was actually an opportunity to provide a specialized service and a focus answering those pain points that Zambians in the diaspora have, such as being swindled by family and friends, not knowing if something is a genuine real estate opportunity, not understanding the process. So that's really how Diaspora Connect was born.
Amazing. So you now have Diaspora Connect. And honestly, I have heard horror stories too of people trying to invest who are in the diaspora and they get swindled, whether by family members or friends or just other clients that they've worked with in the real estate business. And so I know that your company is filling a really important need. Tell us about your portfolio that you currently run and the different types of investments that are available within the realm of real estate. Because sometimes I feel like people, including myself at some point, have a very limited understanding of the breadth of what real estate can actually encompass.
I'm really glad you asked that question, Mercy, because I always tell people that real estate is not one thing. Real
Right.
estate is many different things. So you've got different sectors within real estate. So you've
Yeah.
got commercial, you've got residential, you've
Mhm.
got warehousing and logistics, you've got agriculture, you have
Yeah.
mixed use. So there's so many different types of real estate that we
Yeah.
can talk about. So for ourselves as Diaspora Connect, we really focus on residential real estate
Hmm.
because we know that most people who live abroad are thinking about having a home back home or
Right.
an investment property where they can stay for a couple of weeks or months in the year when they come back home. So that's where our focus is. And
Hmm.
of course, we do get some people who want commercial and industrial, but we don't really focus on that. So on the residential side, again, you've also got subsectors within that sector.
Yeah.
You've got your high end, you've got
Mhm.
your midpoint, mid market, and then you've got your
Yeah.
lower end. So that's why real estate is so vast.
Yeah.
In terms of what's on our books,
Hmm.
we have plots for sale. This is often bare land. So when I say plots, this is bare land that's for sale. Usually it's within an estate, a gated community where the developer is providing other services. And I
Hmm.
really like this for our diaspora clients because it reduces the headaches for them. They don't have to buy this piece of land and then have the headache of how am I going to connect to Zesco and
Right.
power, and now I
Because that is a
have to
whole syllabus by itself.
exactly. That can be such a headache.
Yeah.
So we like to work with developers who've already done all of that hard work for our clients.
Hmm.
Now, what it means sometimes is that the properties that we sell are often more expensive than just a piece of
Hmm.
land because those services have been put in. And
Right.
of course, it comes at a cost.
Hmm.
So we have those pieces of land. And
Yeah.
then we also have some developers who actually build for you. So again, it's all about reducing the stress and the headache of
Yeah.
investing in property back home. So, these developers are building flats or two
Hmm.
bed, three bed, four-bedroomed houses. Some of them are even
Hmm.
doing double-story houses. So we're
Right.
always looking at ways of making it easier
Hmm.
for our friends who live abroad to invest back home.
So for someone who is like, I'm just getting started, I want to get interest, I'm interested in residential. Let's talk about residential. Yes, we have a large segment of our audience who might be interested in commercial, industrial, agriculture, and all of that. But with the basics of residential, someone is interested in working with a developer. How does that process actually work? And the other thing I want you to touch on is the issue of financing, because I know that sometimes when you're working with developers, those properties tend to be more on the higher end than the regular plots that you have to develop by yourself.
Yes, yes. So, another great question. So, first, let me answer the first question, which is
Hmm.
how does it work? So,
Yeah.
we have a three-part framework that we take our clients through. And the first part of that framework, it's a buying framework, a property buying framework. And so, the
Hmm.
first part of that framework obviously starts with the property, and it starts with finding out from you as our client, what type of property are you interested in? Some people might say, I want a large plot or a small plot, I want a house, I want an apartment. So we really need to understand what the client is looking for. And then we will see if we can assist them because, we don't have hundreds of property listings. The way that we work is we like to work with verified and credible vendors. So, there are times when we may not be able to assist that client. So it's really important for us to understand what the client wants. And we are very upfront in telling them that, okay, we've got something that might interest you or we don't.
Hmm.
So it
Right.
starts with the property. And if we do have something that interests them, then we give them a lot of information related to that property. So information is key, information is power. And we know that they're not here. So a lot of agents will focus just on the sale of the house or the price of the house or the price of the land. But we
Mhm.
give you more information than that. So we do videos, we tell you the area, what's happening in the area. You can see aerial shots, you can see the
Mhm.
road network. We like to give you a lot of information because we know that you're not on the ground. The other
Right.
thing that we do is we also tell you about costs. And this is where my legal background comes in.
Mhm.
So, like I said, most agents are going to focus on just the price of the property. But we
Right.
also
Like this is going to be 500,000, but then when you add all of the other things, it's like 800,000.
exactly. So we like to tell clients, look, these are the costs that you need to budget for, okay?
Right.
Because at the end of getting your property, you need to have title, and there's a
Exactly.
cost to that, and you should be able to budget for that cost from the very beginning. You
Mhm.
might not be incurring that cost straight away, but it's something that you need to bear in mind to say, okay, to get from A to Z, this is how much it's going to cost. So that's all in the first part of our three-part framework. The first is
Mhm.
property. The second part is the purchase. So
Mhm.
now that you've decided that, okay, I like this property, I can afford it, it's within my budget, then we now look at starting that process of you actually making the purchase of that
Mhm.
property. Now, again, this is something that I really emphasize on because of my legal
Yeah.
background. Mercy, you'll be surprised how many clients come to me having
Mhm.
bought a property based on an email, a
Oh
WhatsApp
my
message.
God. Oh my
Yes,
God.
and it's not unusual. It's
It's
not
like
unusual.
do some due diligence.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
we do all the due diligences on the properties
Mhm.
that we market, but
Yeah.
you must protect yourself. Sign a legal
Exactly.
agreement, sign a
Mhm.
contract. You don't just go ahead based on a WhatsApp message or a phone call or,
Mhm.
an advert that you saw on Facebook. So,
Yeah.
we really make sure that our clients' interests are protected.
Mhm.
So we help them with signing all the legal work,
Mhm.
um, with all the legal documentation, sorry. And then the final part of the three-part framework. So you've
Mhm.
identified the property, you have purchased the property, and the final part for us is being a proprietor. So it's a
Mhm.
3P framework. And the last part is being a registered proprietor. I
Mm.
am really big on getting your title deeds.
Right.
Again, it just surprises me. People will buy such an important asset like property
Right.
or land and then sit on that title. They won't even get
Exactly.
their title. Yeah, they'll be like, oh, I've owned it for 5 years. I need to look for the paperwork so I can process my title deed. I'm like,
Right.
what?
Like what is going on? Yeah.
What is going on? So for me, I think it's really important to close that
Mhm.
process with your title
Mhm.
deed because,
Yeah.
legally speaking, it's only that title deed that is
Mm.
conclusive evidence in the eyes of the law that you are the owner
Mm.
of the land. So when we work with clients, we
Mhm.
take them through this entire process. We're not just
Mhm.
interested in making a sale,
Mhm.
getting our fees, and then we're like, adios. So we
Yeah.
stay with the client for that whole process.
Mhm.
So now coming to your second question, which was the financing. So this
Yeah.
is like a big thing. Of course,
This is
we
a
don't.
big thing. And I think that sometimes, well, in my experience or what I've seen is that the world of financing is still developing, at least in Zambia and other countries, for the regular person. And whereas in other countries, it might be more developed and it might actually be the norm when purchasing, real estate or investing in real estate and other things. And there's just a lot of misconceptions, I think, from my conversations with different people around the world of financing and how that works.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there are a lot of misconceptions, a lot of
Mhm.
misunderstandings. People don't know what options are available to them. So there are two types of financing that you can talk about when it comes to buying
Mhm.
property. So the first type is the more traditional type, which is going to the bank or going to a building society and getting a loan, getting a mortgage.
Right.
Now, to me personally, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Getting a mortgage is a very rigorous and sometimes cumbersome process
Yes.
because that bank or financial institution needs to
Mhm.
do a due diligence on your credit worthiness. You know, they're
Correct.
not lending you money so that they can
Mhm.
repossess that property. That's not their
Yeah,
business. Their
exactly.
business is lending you that money and making sure you're in a position to pay back
Hmm.
that loan so that they can make money off the interest and not your property.
Correct.
So the same is the case here. The banks here do want to lend to people in the diaspora, but they
Hmm.
have their own processes that they have to go through. And remember that if you're in the diaspora, some of those processes in order to assess your credit worthiness, it's not as easy to do when you're out of the country.
Right.
So that's one thing. And of course, when it comes to getting a mortgage, one of the things that really stops people from borrowing is the interest rates.
Yes. Oh my God. They're crazy.
Yes. So our interest rates are north of 25% here. And I have to say, it amuses me when you guys like in the US and the UK, you're like, oh my God, interest rates are 6% now, you know?
It's like it just went to 6%. We can't do this.
Yeah,
We're
we
holding
can't
off
deal.
on buying anything.
I'm like, 6%. I think I would have had 100 properties by now.
I know. I know.
So our interest rates are really high.
Hmm.
But I think if you're in the diaspora, you have such a great opportunity
Hmm.
because our currency is so unstable. And if
Hmm.
you look at the performance of the kwacha, if you're
Hmm.
earning foreign exchange, you
Yeah.
will find that paying off that loan, even at a
Hmm.
high interest rate,
Right.
will it won't stress you at all because
Right.
you will find that, especially excuse me, if you borrow in kwacha, you'll find
Hmm.
that you're actually paying less in dollar
Less.
terms. Yes.
Exactly. Hmm.
But unfortunately for our friends, so many people look at the interest rates and get scared
Hmm.
off. And for me, I feel like it's a lost opportunity.
Hmm.
And that people don't go for it because of the interest rate when they're not really looking at the
Hmm.
performance of the currency and the fact that they're earning in foreign exchange.
Yeah.
So that's on the loans and the mortgages.
Hmm.
Then the second form of financing is vendor financing, and this is very common and very popular in
Yeah.
Zambia. So this is where the sellers themselves will allow you to pay off that property over time. And so you
Mm-hmm.
could have a payment plan ranging from anywhere between 6 months to 2 years, 3 years, and I've seen some vendors even go up to 5 years. So
Interesting.
yes, yes. So, and of course, they have interest on those payments
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
there is a time value of money. You can't just allow someone to pay for 5 years interest free.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's another great way for people to be able to buy a property in a very
Mm-hmm.
affordable way. And
Awesome.
so, yeah, so I would say that, because you've got these different payment options, that
Mm-hmm.
it's actually made buying property, it's not as cumbersome as it used to be,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
before you'd have to have the cash. If you don't have the cash, you can't get on the property ladder. But now so
Right.
many lenders, especially
Mm-hmm.
within an estate, are
Yeah.
offering these payment terms.
So that's the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of is the estate development and people buying from that already developed estate and things like that. Do you have Are there any pros or cons to doing that versus the traditional way of buying your own land and building on your own? What are the
Okay.
pros and cons of each?
Okay, so the pros of buying within an estate is
Mhm.
one of which I mentioned, which is the payment terms.
Yes.
So it's usual within an estate that they're going to offer you payment terms. Now, we've
Mhm.
had so many clients who are like, "Oh no, I don't really want to buy in an estate," and I'm like, "That's fine. You can buy
Mhm.
a standalone, but make sure you've got cash."
Yeah.
because a seller who's selling a plot or a house as an individual, they're selling
Mhm.
because they want cash. They're not selling to do
Right.
you a favor and have you pay over 6 to 12 months.
Hey, let me do you a favor. Come, like, pay me when you have the
Yeah, when
money.
you've got the money, yeah, just pay me whatever you want at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think people need to understand that if
Right.
you want to buy a standalone property, then make sure you've got the cash ready.
Hmm.
So that's one pro of buying in an estate. The
Yeah.
second pro, I would say, is something I mentioned earlier, which is the services are usually included in an estate.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's important to point out that, we've got challenges here with our infrastructure. So
Right.
you've seen what we're going through in terms of load shedding. Zesco is
Hmm.
not in a rush to lay down new poles and
Right.
and bring electricity to your doorstep. And I think
Exactly.
that people really underestimate the cost and the headache it takes to put these services in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not just power, but could also be water,
Mm-hmm.
sewer,
Yeah.
even things like security.
Yeah.
So that's a big pro of being in an estate, that all those things
Mm-hmm.
are already done for you.
Right.
Um, so I would say that's on the pro side.
Mm-hmm.
The other pro I would mention is that generally speaking, the value of a property within an estate is going to
Mm-hmm.
be higher than the same property in the
Mm-hmm.
same neighborhood, which is
Okay.
standalone.
That's
Yes.
interesting. I didn't know that. See, I'm
Yeah,
learning.
it is. Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
Because because the estate has there's a general maintenance of the
Mm-hmm.
properties, of what people are building within an estate.
Yeah.
There's maintenance of the grounds, and so all of those things are maintaining the value of the properties within the estate and helping
Mm-hmm.
them appreciate a little faster than properties outside the estate. So a
Mm-hmm.
good example is if you look at Roma Park. So the
Mm-hmm.
houses within Roma Park are much
Mm-hmm.
more valuable and will sell for more than a
Wow.
similar house, which is, maybe up the road, but it's a standalone.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also
Mm-hmm.
because of the amenities that you find within these estates, some
Correct.
of them will have a clubhouse like Roma
Mm-hmm.
Park does,
Mm-hmm.
tennis courts, a gym.
Yeah.
So all of those things are adding value. The security,
Yeah.
um, and you're likely also to be able to charge a bit more in rentals when you're within
Mm-hmm.
these estates than outside of them. So I would say that those are
Mm-hmm.
the three pros.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, there'll be a lot more. But in terms of cons, I would
Mm-hmm.
say is the restrictions. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, when you go into an estate, you can't do whatever you want wherever you want. You might not be able to paint that house your favorite color,
I know.
yellow.
And bring your horses to the
Yes, or your
backyard.
chickens. You're talking about horses, your chickens, Mercy.
Yeah.
So, there are going to be a couple of rules that you'll have to follow,
Mm-hmm.
and some people don't like that. So
Right.
some people will just say, you know what, I would just prefer actually to
Mm-hmm.
be on my own so that I can build whatever I want. And that's fair
Right.
enough. I totally get
Mm-hmm.
that and understand
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so what that's one of the cons of being in an estate. Um, the second con I would say is also the additional fees that you have to
Yeah.
pay. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so there'll be some of these homeowner fees or
Yeah.
levies. Yeah, and
Yes.
sometimes people are like, what are we really paying for? Are we really getting value for money?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I would say those are some of the cons of being in an estate.
So you brought up something that I actually wanted us to touch on, which is rentals. There are a lot of people building to rent. What are your thoughts about those types of investments? Is there viability? I've heard so many different thought processes on this in terms of it takes you so much money to build, and then when you put it on rent, by the time you recoup that money, the value is not going to be the same as what you actually invested. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay, I love this question because it does come up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that, in fact, we have a property investors club,
Yes.
which is a membership club.
Mm-hmm.
And we had someone come in and talk about a rental strategy, how you develop
Mm-hmm.
your rental strategy.
Yeah.
That's really important. So you need to understand, first of all, where is this property that you want to
Mm-hmm.
develop and put people in for rent? What
Right.
are the general rentals in that area?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to add more services, what's the best that you can hope to get in this area? So
Right.
sometimes people will buy a property in a medium or low cost area and want to charge
Mm-hmm.
high cost rentals. It doesn't work.
Right.
If you know you're in a mid cost area, do a mid cost build.
Right.
I found people doing really expensive finishing in a mid-cost
Mm-hmm.
area. Why would you do that? So we're going
Right.
to, yeah, we're going to have somebody in the club in a
Mm-hmm.
couple of months talking about your finishes.
Oh,
And
nice.
the first thing he asks is, how much rent are you
Mm-hmm.
expecting to get from this property? And then he'll
Mm-hmm.
be able to tell you, you don't need this kind of tile. You don't
Yeah.
need this kind of kitchen unit. You don't need this. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need that. So
Yeah.
that an alignment with what you're spending and the rentals
Exactly.
that you're getting.
Mm.
So that's one thing. The second thing that our former speaker talked about in the club was scalable rentals. You
Mm.
must be in a place where you can have scalable rentals. And what did he mean
Mm-hmm.
by that? What he meant is that as you are adding value to that
Right.
property location, which will allow you to increase your rentals.
Mm.
So I think a lot of people just go into things without a strategy, like, oh, let me just,
It's like
yeah,
everybody's doing this, and I've heard that my
yeah,
friend made money doing this, so then I should also do it. And
yeah.
no research, nothing, just pouring in resources without being informed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it starts, Mercy, from the design, from the
Hmm.
architect and the design. Because
Right.
if you tell your architect that this is going to be an investment property, a rental
Mhm.
property, it's
Yeah.
mid-market, even just the way he designs it and the
Hmm.
build from
Yeah.
there is going
Hmm.
to be different than if you tell him, I want top of the line.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's an important thing to take into
Hmm.
consideration. The other thing that people often miss out when they talk about, oh, rentals are so low, etc.
Yeah.
The other thing that people often miss out is uh, capital appreciation. So the
Hmm.
good thing about property is that
Hmm.
it's one of those wonderful assets, few
Yeah.
assets that gives you two
Hmm.
things. One, it gives you an income.
Yeah.
Two, it gives you capital appreciation. So
Hmm.
yes, maybe your rentals have flatlined, but
Yeah.
your property is still appreciating. And
Hmm.
sometimes the appreciation of that property can be quite rapid. You
Hmm.
might find in the space of 3 to 5 years, your property has appreciated by 40%.
Right.
What does that mean? That means that you can now go to the bank. You've got an
Hmm.
asset, you've got collateral. You can go to the bank, release
Right.
equity, and buy
Hmm.
another property.
Hmm.
So for me, it's not just about looking at rentals, it's also
Right.
about looking at the capital appreciation of that.
So I'm glad you bring that up because I've heard horror stories about using the equity in your home to do other investments, and people fail to pay back because it's still a loan. That equity loan is still a loan that you have to pay back. What are some safeguards that people should be thinking about before they decide to do that? Because you don't want to lose your home because you failed to pay back your equity loan.
Yeah, but that's not losing your home because you did an equity release is not the fault
Yeah,
of the property. It's the fault
right.
of, other external circumstances.
Hmm.
So I think when you're getting an equity release on your home, you have to be sure about what it
Right.
is you're using that money for.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you have to be able to know that you're going to be able to make the payments.
Right.
Yeah, because I think this is how, when we talk about wealth creation through property, this is one of the ways in which we do it. We want
Exactly.
to get an asset, we want it to appreciate, and then we want to
Hmm.
be able to leverage off it. So
Yes.
you have to understand um,
Mm-hmm.
how you're going to leverage off it, and how you're going
Mm-hmm.
to meet that commitment.
Yes.
One of the things that we talked about in the club is we had a whole session on
Mm-hmm.
financing your real estate investments, which was
Yeah.
brilliant. So we had two bankers in there.
Mm-hmm.
One talking about commercial finance or financing commercial products,
Mm-hmm.
projects. The other one talking about financing residential
Mm-hmm.
projects. And one of the things one of the bankers said, and it was, I should actually give him a shout out because they were one of our sponsors,
Yeah.
Mwansa from Building Society. He
Mm-hmm.
said when you're borrowing, banks will look at a threshold. So
Yeah.
they'll tell you that they're not your repayments shouldn't go above, let's say, 40% of your
Mm-hmm.
income. And he
Right.
said you should go lower than that. You personally should give yourself a threshold of only 30%, so
Yeah.
that you've got that room, that 10%
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to wriggle room. If things
Mm-hmm.
happen, if the interest rates go up,
Because
if
things do happen, and
yeah,
planned things
because
do
life
happen
happens.
all the time.
Yeah, life happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you have to build in your own safeguards to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
you don't lose your home.
Awesome. So I love the advice you've given in terms of really doing a thorough research in terms of understanding what is your market before you start building anything for rental purposes, to really understand even from just the design, the finishings, the location, all of these things, so that whatever money you're investing in is something you can recoup based on what you've actually invested. So I love that. I've not that I've never thought of it that way, but I think you shed a lot more light in terms of some of those decision making processes that people have to go through. So another thing in the residential, and maybe this is not so much residential real estate, but Airbnb is becoming a thing or has become a thing. So I wanted you to touch on that as well. What advice do you have for people who want to turn their residential properties into Airbnbs? And what are some of the things that people should be aware of on the market before they jump into something like that?
So, Mercy, you took the words right out of my mouth. I knew there was something that I knew I'd forgotten to say when you asked the question about rentals. And you just said it. So I'm so glad you brought it up. So
Yeah,
if you want more income from your property, then short stay is the way to go.
yeah,
Airbnb, booking.com,
yeah.
now we have technology and let's use it
Hmm.
to our advantage. So
Right.
when it comes to Airbnb, I
Hmm.
think we've done two videos with
Hmm.
um, Zambian investors, Zambian
Yeah.
property buyers, just like you and I, who've bought
Hmm.
property and they have now turned it into Airbnb. People can go on our YouTube channel, Buying Property in
Yeah.
Zambia on YouTube to see those videos. But
Hmm.
what's really important is your finishing.
Yeah.
If you want to do Airbnb, so make it nice, make it neat.
Hmm.
Again, look at what you're going to be charging,
Yeah.
before you put in a high-tech kitchen. Um,
I know,
and
like all the fancy things. Like, does this person have a chef? Are they going to have a chef for you
exactly,
to put in your
exactly,
double ovens and all of that?
that's right. So, a very good, nice, neat finishing
Hmm.
is really important for Airbnb, and
Yeah.
also the services. So, what services are you going to include? Are you going to
Yeah.
have DSTV? Are you
Mm.
going to have Wi-Fi? Is there going
Right.
to be a daily cleaning service? Do you have backup power? So, there are
Yeah.
all these things that people will want to be comfortable, and
Hmm.
if you provide those services, then of course you can start charging accordingly.
Yeah.
I was talking to a couple at the beginning of the year, just when we were getting back to work, and
Hmm.
they have a property in Mapepe. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know where that is. It's
No.
past Chilanga. It's very
Okay.
far past Chilanga.
Yeah.
And so their plan was just to build like a small farmhouse.
Hmm.
And then they decided to finish it up really nicely. They put it
Hmm.
on Airbnb almost as an experiment, just to see, okay, let's
Hmm.
see if anybody,
Yeah.
if anybody bites. It's full 65% of the year. It's full.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
far. It's not like you're driving to Woodlands or
Yeah,
Kablonga, you know.
right.
They have they have occupancy 65% of the year.
Wow.
So Airbnb short stay, let me just say
Hmm.
short stay
Short
is,
stay.
yeah, is really hot right now.
Mm. Yeah, because I've been a beneficiary of short stays because sometimes I'm like I'm in Zambia, I'm in a different location and whatever. I just load shading, all of these things. It's like, oh my goodness. I'm like, I
Yeah.
just need somewhere where I know I can be able to do everything that I need to do when I need to do when I need
Yeah.
to do it. So I know I've done that too, and definitely something I'm investing in myself. And I'm like, it's
Great.
definitely worthwhile. But there are a lot of things that you also have to think about, like you said, location, amenities, and all of those things. So I'm glad that you talked a little bit about that. So what
Yes.
else
Sorry,
in
Mercy.
the
I just wanted to mention as well that
yeah,
we had another person from our diaspora community who
yeah,
sort of took us through his journey. If people have time, they should click on that video.
yeah,
It was really good. So he bought an old house,
mm,
renovated it. He turned an old three-bedroom double-story house into this modern four-bed double-story house with a swimming
wow,
pool, everything, and got an interior decorator to do it up
mhm,
really nicely on the inside. The
yeah,
day on Airbnb, he had bookings.
wow.
Mm.
That's amazing. So that's the other thing. What is the how do you judge the markets? There's some people who want large family spaces for family vacations. There are people who want just one bedroom, some amenities and all of that. If you're just starting out, how do you make some of those decisions on whether to go big, small, mid-size? What are some considerations?
I think that if you're just starting out, it's always better
Mhm.
to start small
Yeah.
because real estate is a major investment. It's a big
Mhm.
investment and it costs a lot
Yeah.
of money. So it's always better to start small. And also,
Mhm.
you find that two-bed units are very popular, one-bed units are also
Yeah.
very popular. And that's for, it could be the business traveler or somebody
Yeah.
who's a consultant or, coming in for a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then I think as you gain experience, as you're able to invest more, as you
Right.
build up your financial base, then you can go to bigger units like your three-bed or your
Mhm.
your big four-bed family home.
Right.
And I
Awesome.
think also, Airbnb, like anything else on the online world, it's also about how you market your property.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go for the big family home, then market it
Mhm.
in such a way that
Mhm.
you're attracting families to
Right.
come and stay there.
Yeah. Wow, so much to learn, so much to so much to talk about. So, in terms of even just starting, because I have a question in the chat. What is your advice to young professionals in the diaspora or even in Zambia who are seeking to invest in real estate about how to start, cost and everything? I think having something like Diaspora Connect is very important for those people who are just starting and then outside of the country or even in the country but really want that expert advice. So in your opinion, Natasha, where should people get started from?
So I think the important thing first is to make a decision to start.
Yeah.
So I see for people who are in the diaspora, sometimes I see analysis paralysis.
Yes.
So they're constantly thinking, should I, shouldn't I, shouldn't I, should
Mhm.
I?
Yeah.
Um, Also getting advice from so many different sources, talking to
Yeah.
every auntie, uncle, cousin, brother, sister, and that can confuse you, especially
Exactly.
talking to people who are not professionals
Mhm.
um, in the industry. So I think it's making that decision to say that you're going to start. Now, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you start in a haphazard way.
Right.
Start by doing your research.
Mhm.
So we have a property goal setting session that's coming up. And
Okay.
I will be happy to share the link with your audience.
Yes,
Um,
please. We can put it in the chat. People can have
okay,
access to it.
okay, all right. I will bring it up and put it in the chat. But I think that also you need to align your goals with where you are in life. You
Yeah.
know, if you say like, okay, yeah, I really want to get into to real estate, and then
Mm-hmm.
but I look at the property prices in Woodlands, they're just too expensive. No, you don't need to start there. Start
Exactly.
where you can. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
young professional, start with a plot
Yeah.
and just start paying off that plot over a period of
Mm-hmm.
time. There's so
Yeah.
many different options that you have on the market. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that is a great place for people to start. And then the
Yeah.
other thing I would want to say is make sure you always use professionals because I know I harp on and on about this. It's because I,
They're
it's
like,
because
no, Natasha, it's just because this is your business. So you're gonna promote it anyway.
I'm going to promote my business, but also, when I hear people talk about the things and the experiences that they've been through and the horror stories,
Mm-hmm.
nine
Yeah.
times out of 10, it's a family member,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And
Unfortunately.
so, yeah, unfortunately. So I
Mm-hmm.
know people think that, oh my God, if my cousin could do this to me, what more this stranger Natasha who
Yeah.
I've just seen online?
Yeah.
But really start with professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you have a licensed real estate agent. You can check.
Mm-hmm.
We have an institute, the Zambia Institute of Estate Agents.
Mm-hmm.
All estate agents have to be registered with them. All
Mm-hmm.
practicing lawyers have to be registered with the Law Association of Zambia. So,
Yeah.
if you're using an architect, they also have to be registered with the Zambia Institute of Architects.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are these professional bodies.
Yeah.
Get advice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it with unlicensed people. You don't have to do it in a very casual and informal way, by just asking your family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're good. They can be good sounding boards, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, the decision is yours. So that would be my advice to young professionals. I've just dropped the link for the goal setting session. I don't know how to share it, so I've just put it in there.
Okay, awesome.
Anyone's interested.
Yay, thank you. So, Natasha, we've talked about a lot of things, but I
Yes,
am by these are the things that I've brought up to this point and things that I know about and I'm interested in, but I am by no means an expert at all in real estate, residential real estate. What else is out there that people can be aware of that we haven't even touched on yet?
well, I would say one hot property sector in real estate right now is student accommodation. So,
Yes, I know
yeah,
you talked about that. I mean, I was supposed to bring that up, so go ahead.
yeah. So, yeah, this is a hot sector right now. So,
Yeah,
and the reasons are really obvious.
yeah,
We have a young population, a growing population. We have free
hmm,
education now, which has seen
yeah,
student enrollments just skyrocket.
yes,
Um, and we have a big, big gap. So the
yes,
demand is just growing year by
hmm,
year, and the
hmm,
bed space is just not keeping up. So when I
yeah,
mentioned the different projects that
yeah,
I've been involved with as a property developer, that's the
yeah.
reason why I'm now going into student accommodation because
I
it is
know.
hot sectors that everyone should be looking at it if you're
Hmm.
interested in real estate right now.
Yeah, I have some family members who are interested in that or doing that at a much lower scale, but I'm told that it's hot business. It's
It
hot
is.
business right now. So
So,
what? Go ahead.
no, Missy, I was just going to say, you talked about the low rental income.
Hmm.
So, we have so many examples. So I had one lady who was just watching our
Hmm.
YouTube channel, minding her business, watching our YouTube
Yeah.
channel. So she had a small cottage which she put on rent. She was getting 2,000 kwacha a month, turned
Hmm.
it into student accommodation, and she went from 2,000 to 6,000 kwacha a month. So she
Wow.
was able to 3x her rental income. Then one
Mm-hmm.
of our other guests on the YouTube channel, she took a normal three-bedroom family
Mm-hmm.
home and converted it into student accommodation, and she was able to
Mm-hmm.
10x her income.
Wow.
So yeah, that's why people are really interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like with every investment, it comes
Yeah.
with its pros and cons, like we talked
Yeah.
about earlier. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really great sector to look at the moment.
Well, now that you bring that up, what are some of the pros and cons? Because it's like,
So
oh, it's hot. I'm going to jump in. But wait, before you jump in, here's some pros and here's some cons that you need to
okay,
be
so the
aware of.
pros we already talked about them. Really
Right.
strong demand, not enough supply. So those are the
Right.
big pros. The cons
Mm-hmm.
is that obviously you're dealing, excuse me, you're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
students.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, students break things. There's a lot
Yeah.
more wear and
Maintenance
tear.
cost. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got a lot more wear and tear on the property.
Mm-hmm.
Also, some people complain about the behavior of the students.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people who have different rules about their residences. So
Mm-hmm.
some will like lock the gate at 22 hours or things like that.
Yeah.
So there's also that con of almost feeling like you have to look after the students.
Yeah.
So it's not like your normal tenant where you just give them the
Tenant.
key and they
Right.
walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say those are some of the cons. And then also some of the cons, although I don't see it so much as a con, is that people feel like you need to be close to a university.
Mm-hmm.
And you may find that investing in that property is expensive in those particular
In those
areas.
areas.
Yeah. So those are
Another
some.
one that I've heard is turnover. Like most of the time when you rent a family home, you're expecting, people to stay there for a good number of months or years, but sometimes with the student accommodations, they can be turnover. How do you manage that?
Well, yes, I think the turnover can be there, but then I've heard the opposite, where,
Okay.
I know somebody who's got a waiting list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're always full,
Interesting.
full, full. He had
Mhm.
parents just drop off their children there and say, "We've got, we've got nowhere else to take them." So,
Here you go. These are your kids now. Take.
yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And in terms of that, we talked about finishings and things like that. For what I'm hearing, for most of these student accommodations, most people are doing bare minimum finishings type of thing. But do you think, in your experience, there's room for high-end student accommodation? And I say that because, like, for example, here in the US, even like student housing, there's like levels. There's levels of student housing. There's, presidential, and then there's what, and then for the regular person like me, is there market for something like that, or we haven't gotten to that yet
there
in the
is,
Zambian market?
there's 100% room for that.
Mm,
And that is already pertaining on the ground. So
mm,
before I started on my project, I
yeah.
did a market study, and the
Mm,
market study was able to show me the different levels. So you've got the
yeah.
very basic, just squeeze a few bunk beds in someone's
Hmm.
house. Then you've
Yeah.
got the mid tier, and then you've got the top end.
Yeah.
And one of the people I know who's telling you who's got a waiting list, he's at the top
Hmm.
end of the market.
Wow.
So, I don't know, maybe if you're at the low end, you have that turnover.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. But
Yeah.
even in terms of my project, I
Hmm.
want to do something that's world class.
Yeah.
So I'm not squeezing bunk beds into a bedroom, but, I
Hmm.
want to bring a world class standard to
Yeah.
student accommodation. And so obviously, we're going to have to charge for that.
Yes. And I was just, it was a couple of weeks ago, I was completely amazed that I think it was Lusaka University. Is it University of Lusaka? They had like this big bus at the airport receiving international students. And I'm like, oh my God, like we're actually doing this in Zambia. This is like Amazing.
Yes, of course, of course. There are a lot of international students that come to be educated in Zambia.
That's
And so,
awesome.
just as a quick example,
Yeah.
the where my location of my site is, it's
Mm-hmm.
between two medical schools, and they
Mm.
have a lot of students from the region. And
Yeah.
I know one other person who's doing student accommodation. 70% of his tenants, of the
Mm-hmm.
students occupying their facility, are
Yeah.
from the region. So,
Wow.
there's a lot to commend Zambia. I always tell my
Mm-hmm.
kids, Zambia is paradise. And it's easy
Yeah.
to forget about that when you hear the daily criticisms and complaints that people have. But Zambia is paradise. I love my country. I love Zambia. There's so much
Yeah.
that we're doing right that people just don't talk
Exactly.
about because of the noise.
Ah, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise. Well, Natasha, you wanted to talk a little bit about some of your upcoming conferences and coachings and things like that. I want to give you the opportunity for you to talk about Diaspora Connect and all the wonderful opportunities you have for um, goal setting sessions and master classes and all of those things. How can people utilize your services? Where can they find you? How do they get plugged into all the wealth of resources and information that you have?
Thank you, Mercy. That's so kind of you. First of all, before I go into that, I just want to apologize that my lighting has completely gone now. So all you're seeing is a shadow of myself. But I hope people can still hear me clearly, if nothing
And I
else.
can see you just fine.
Okay, so thanks again. We have a property goal setting session that's coming up on the 15th of March. And
Mhm.
this is, I love doing this session. We do it every year, and every year more and more people sign up.
Mhm.
And I really take people through the process of how to set, sustain, and achieve realistic property goals for 2025. I take you
Yeah.
through a whole framework, and it's a great place to start for people
Yeah.
who want to, get their foot on the property ladder.
Mhm.
It'll really give you a personalized action plan by the end of the session. So that
Mhm.
is online, anybody can register, and it's free.
And you said March 18th,
15th, March
15th.
15th. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we do have our Property Investors Club. So the club
Mhm.
is something that we started last year, and I'm just loving the experience,
Yeah.
because I'm not an expert in everything. I don't pretend to be, but I
Mhm.
have a fantastic network of colleagues and professionals who I have been
Yeah.
working with in,
Mhm.
the 20 years that I've been in this industry.
Mhm.
So the club members have questions, they have other topics that they want to know about. And I think
Right.
I've mentioned a few of the topics we've had: developing your rental strategy, looking
Mhm.
at real estate trends. And so the club is a place where every month we
Mhm.
have a speaker who will take us through a masterclass.
Yeah.
Very practical, highly insightful. This is where the strategy of real estate
Yeah.
comes in. And information is so hard to find here at home. So
Yeah.
the information is really with the practitioners. It's with us
Right.
guys who are on the ground doing this work every day. So it's
Mhm.
for me, it's always a pleasure for us to have these sessions.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people can work with us if they want to buy property.
Mhm.
We can tell them, we can guide them on the whole
Yeah.
process. Like I said,
Mhm.
we can show them what we have on our books. And
Mhm.
if it's something that aligns with them, then we love taking clients through that process so that they can be proud property owners at the end of it.
Awesome. Tell us your website. It's Diaspora Connect.
No, actually, so our website is Buying Property in Zambia. You
Oh,
can't forget.
really?
Yes, yes. So it's www.buyingpropertyinzambia.com. Very easy to remember.
Interesting.
And all of our
Okay.
social media handles are Buying Property in Zambia. We are very active on LinkedIn. That's where you'll
Mhm.
find everything that we are up to. And
Yeah.
if people want to find me as well or get in touch with me,
Mhm.
they can just go to LinkedIn and message me
Mhm.
there. That's where
Yeah.
I'm most active.
Awesome. Well, we always like to end our sessions. I can't believe we've been talking for an hour. We've been talking for an hour, but we do love to end our sessions with some pearls of wisdom. Whether generally in life, it takes a lot of grit and perseverance to get to do what you do and to get to where you are. So we believe you've learned some lessons along the way, whether they're specific to real estate investment or just life in general. And I always like to have my guests share their pearls of wisdom with our audience in terms of what has helped them to be successful in life and what are some considerations they should have as they go through life on a day-to-day basis. So, what are your top 3 to 5
Oh my God.
pearls of wisdom?
So I would say my top 3 to 5. First, I would say focus.
Yeah.
I think that in the world that we live in today, it's so
Hmm.
easy to be distracted on a daily basis, on a
Exactly.
hourly, minute to minute basis. It's
Yeah.
so important to be focused.
Yeah.
Sometimes my friends get really irritated with me because they know that if they try and call me during certain times, I'm not going to
Yeah.
pick up the call because I'm focused on what
You're
I need to
focused
get
on
done
something.
today.
Exactly.
Yes,
Too
I'm
much
focused.
distraction. There's so much going on in life and in the world in general. It's just so easy to be carried away and to want to put your foot in everything.
Absolutely. Especially as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman,
Hmm.
your brain is hardwired to see opportunities everywhere and it's so easy to
Right.
jump around. So
Hmm.
if you want to build something meaningful, whether it's in your personal life or professional life, I think it's really
Hmm.
important to be focused.
Hmm.
Um, the second thing I would say is perseverance.
Yes.
Um, it's, I think that people give up too early. When
Hmm.
we started Diaspora Connect a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
we didn't make a sale for the first 2 years,
Oh my
and
God.
and I had done everything right. We had done our market research, we had asked our clients in the diaspora,
Yeah.
is this a service you think is a good idea? Yes, it's great. We need it. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
And then we go live, and I'm thinking, we're going to break the internet. Everybody thinks this is such a great idea. And it was crickets, or as
Oh
Zambians
my
say,
God.
Z, Z, Z. So
It's like,
that was,
did I do the right thing? What am I
I was
what am
like,
I doing?
so, at that point, I could have easily said, well, this is, not
Mhm.
working. It's a waste of
Yeah.
time and money. So I think perseverance is so, so important. You really need to
Mhm.
give things a long lead time
Yes.
before you can see whether or not it's working out.
I saw one meme that said something about, I can't remember exactly, but it said, what people called my overnight success versus what really happened.
Exactly, exactly. And I think, unfortunately, social media has played a big role in making us believe
Yeah.
that we should be an overnight success. I mean, I see it all the time. I
Right.
was new to the online world
Mhm.
when I started Diaspora Connect. I had to learn about this online world because that's how I
Mhm.
meet great people like you, is
Yeah.
online. That's where the
Mhm.
diaspora and I meet.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had to learn, like, how does this thing work? And that's when you can even begin to think you're a failure because
Yeah.
there's so many people who are like, oh, I just came up with this course, I made 6 figures. I just came up with this new podcast and now it's got 1 million downloads. I just
I
launched my
know.
YouTube channel and now I've got 100K subscribers. And you can think that you're doing things slow and steady and you're a failure,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it's really social media that has made us believe that that's how things should
Mhm.
be. And it's not the case for the vast majority
Yes. Mhm.
of people. So
Yeah.
perseverance is really important. And then the
Mhm.
last thing I can say for me personally that I
Mhm.
use every day in my life
Mhm.
um, is the power of my mind, the
Yes.
power of positive thinking.
Yeah.
And that's why I talk the way I do when I say that, there's so much to commend Zambia. Zambia's paradise. I love my
Yeah.
country. I am always speaking affirmations into my
Hmm.
life. I'm always focusing on the outcomes that I want. I'm
Yeah.
always thinking good thoughts. And it doesn't mean I don't have bad days, or
Yeah.
I don't have bad moments. Of course I do. I'm human. I'm
Hmm.
having a human experience.
Yeah.
But um, I just think that it's so easy
Hmm.
to let what's happening around you brainwash you into a very negative and
It's
hopeless
so
place.
easy to be so hopeless when you
Yes,
think about all the problems in the world, everything that's not working, and you
of
just focus
course.
on that. It can be so depressing, and I think that that's why a lot of the times people are depressed. They don't have self-assurance, self-confidence,
Mm.
because they're just looking at all the negative things. Like, if I sat down and thought about all the things that are not working, I would be depressed. But
Of course.
if I think about all the things that are working well, and that's not to say I'm not living in reality or not acknowledging reality, but that there has to come a point where you have to look at the positive in life and focus on that and have this attitude of gratitude, so that you can actually, for me, that attitude of gratitude, what it does for me, it actually helps me be more innovative and think outside the box, because I'm not just focusing on problems, I'm focusing on solutions. So I love that you say that.
Mercy, you have summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly. In order for us to reach peak performance, we
Yeah.
have to have that attitude of gratitude, the
Yeah.
attitude that things are working out for me, the
Mm.
attitude that, I've got a lot to appreciate,
Yeah.
and I'm going to keep rising, I'm going to keep thriving. And for
Hmm.
me, that's something that I live by that. And I would say it's such a critical part of who I am.
Awesome. Well, we are at the top of our 1 hour session. I have learned a lot. I have regurgitated a lot of information, and I hope that our audiences have learned so much. Please follow Natasha and Diaspora Connect on LinkedIn, on their website. Take part in their master classes and all of these wonderful things they're doing. There's so much to learn about real estate. And I think it's not, I think, I believe it's one of the instruments that's available to us to help us gain financial freedom. And so, if you are looking to get in this space, make sure that you're not doing it blindly, that you have people like Natasha to guide you and make sure you're doing the right thing, doing your due diligence, because it is a large investment most of the time, and you don't want to just lose your money or your investment because you didn't do the right thing. Natasha, thank you so much for your time. For all our viewers, thank you for listening in and joining in. We will see you in March at our next fireside chat. I have a wonderful guest. I can't wait to reveal who they are. Natasha, any parting words for our audience?
No, Mercy, I just want to say thank you again for inviting me to be on your platform. It's
Yes.
been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we'll see everybody in our next fireside chat. Bye bye.
Bye bye.